Hello everyone. So in the previous video, we looked at the impact of Jupiter's transit for 2023. So in this video, we look at the impact of Rahu Ketu transits for 2023 or even 2024 for that matter, because this is a 18-month long transit. Okay. So here I write, unlike the transit predictions for Jupiter and Saturn, we cannot make easy conclusions for the transits of Rahu and Ketu. Always difficult to study the nodes in astrology. Okay. The predictions of Rahu and Ketu transits is a bit more involved than just looking at the Rashis and house cusps impacted. Rahu and Ketu are called Chaya Grahas in astrology or shadow planets. They are basically points in sky that are seen only during eclipses. Hence, Rahu and Ketu must be treated like the lords of the Rashi in which they are transiting. Okay, so you can't just say Rahu will behave like one particular graha or he will behave like the graha is conjunct. There's a lot of impact involved on Rahu Ketu. Rahu Ketu will give the results of the other grahas that they are conjunct in the natal chart as well as in the transit. Okay. For simple understanding purposes, you can treat as if the Lord of that Rashi will transit in that Rashi for a long period of 18 months when Rahu Ketu are in that sign. Okay. So what I mean by that is, look at this example. Rahu is still in the sign of Taurus and Ketu is still in the sign of Scorpio. So sidereal astrologers love this placement. Okay, they call this exaltation for Rahu and exaltation for Ketu. This is not the case. We cannot do that kind of a simple analysis for Rahu Ketu. If it was that simple, then life would have been very easy for astrologers. Okay, it's not like that. So we have to treat this in a different way. So in this chart, if you go with this placement itself, Rahu will behave like Venus, who is the lord of Taurus. Rahu will behave like the moon because he's conjunct the moon. And Rahu, by behaving like both moon and Venus, will impact the 8th house because it's in the 8th house placement. Then Ketu will behave like Mars, and Ketu naturally behaves like Mars. Okay, and Ketu will impact the 2nd house. And Rahu will also always naturally behave like Saturn. Okay, because there is a rule in astrology: Rahu Shanivat, Ketu Kujavat. Okay, so that means they're going to behave naturally like Saturn and Mars respectively. Okay, so understanding the nodes is something very difficult because of these reasons. It's already interesting by having Rahu and Moon in Taurus, Ketu in the sign of Scorpio here. In addition, we have Ketu conjunct the 2nd cusp and Rahu conjunct the 8th cusp. So this is something definitely most astrologers will get excited about. They'll think this is the best exaltation position. But in fact, this is one of the worst positions you can have for Rahu Ketu. Okay, so I will discuss all those things when we go into Rahu Ketu in the future videos. But for now, just note that it's not easy to make predictions about Rahu Ketu without understanding the lords and where they're transiting and so on. Okay, but this statement I write is that you can simply treat as if the lord of that Rashi is transiting in that Rashi for a long period of 18 months. So what do I mean by that? So Rahu will be in the sign of Taurus. Moon will move out of this sign very soon, let's say, okay, because he moves very fast in transit. So that basically means Rahu will behave like Venus, and Venus is transiting in this sign for a very long time of 18 months because of the slow transit of Rahu Ketu. Same way for Mars, because Ketu will behave like Mars in this sign. So if you have a very good Taurus as a Rashi, or Scorpio as a Rashi, or in other words, if you have a very strong Venus in your chart and Mars in your chart, you will enjoy the good transits of Rahu Ketu in this axis. Okay, and of course the Dasha Bhukti also should point at that. So that's how you can simply understand that. Okay. So then I write, however, remember that when other grahas conjunct or impact Rahu and Ketu, they will also act as those grahas are transiting in that sign. So in this case, it was the moon. So Rahu will behave like the moon and he will also impact the sign of Taurus. Okay. So I think now it makes sense to you as how difficult it is making predictions of Rahu Ketu in transits on a standalone basis. It's very difficult to do that. Okay. And there are many more other involved things, but for now, these points of consideration are important. Okay. Next, Rahu Ketu are indicators of the environment and show the global shift in the consciousness of the native and the world. Okay. This basically shows the field under which everything is growing and whatever is manifesting in the world. That's the axis that we are in. All right. So it's something that is globally going to impact. Hence, you will see the eclipses impact the microcosm as much as the macrocosm. Same point. So Rahu and Ketu are essentially where the work must be concentrated on, or putting efforts in those areas of life will lead to transformations. If you would like to make simple predictions, you can do the static analysis of the Rashi Lord and condition of the house cusp that Rahu and Ketu are transiting in. If Lord of the Rashi and house cusp are strong, then depending on the Dasha and Bhukti, Rahu and Ketu will yield great results. Otherwise, vice versa will manifest. Okay, that's a very simple way of looking at it. So one thing you have to keep in mind here is that when you are in the Rahu Dasha or Ketu Dasha and these transits are happening, it will strongly impact the native. Okay, because the eclipses will also happen according to those Rahu Ketu axis, right? But eclipses, whatever it might do, it will still bring a transformation in that arena of life. Okay, the houses that they are in, the grahas that they will impact. So the least of the predictions that will definitely manifest is that a transformation is headed, or it will manifest, or it will happen in that arena of life because of that Rahu Ketu transit. Okay. All right. Next, you can read about other important predictions related to Rahu and Ketu by clicking on this link I say, and that is the previous article for 2020 that I had written. And again, keep track of those dates and world events during this time. Okay. This time, the major shift or impact will be on the Rashi of Aries and Libra, because Rahu will move into Aries, Ketu will move into Libra here. Okay. Aries is the Rashi of self-sufficiency, whereas Libra is the Rashi of working with others and relationships. A healthy Aries-Libra axis is the state of perfectly blend, interdependent relationships where both parties involved contribute equally and benefit equally. Okay, that's the very important statement for a healthy Libra and Aries axis. An unhealthy Aries-Libra axis is when independence and codependence run to the extremes. Okay, so people who have relationship problems in general, they will suffer the most with this transits of Rahu Ketu in Aries and Libra. Okay, so for me, this is something very interesting because we are in a period in the world where most of the economies are trying to shy away from China and get rid of the codependency on its global factories. Okay, I put global factories in highlight here because China is like a global factory for the world. So the entire world was sort of codependent on China, and because of that reason, China started calling the shots. All right. So you can expect major shifts to happen again in the arena of globalization, trade, diplomatic ties, foreign investments, relations, and connections. Okay. So this is the impact that will be there for the next 18 months. In fact, there will be a lot of power play going on between countries. Okay. One person trying to use muscle power over the other. This will be the theme that we will see in this window of Rahu Ketu transits. In fact, due to the ongoing radical changes in the area of global trade, many important CEOs of big tech companies claim that globalization is as good as dead. Okay, this was from one of the most important company in the field of technology and semiconductors, that a CEO came out and said globalization is as good as dead. And guess what? Ketu is the planet transiting in Libra. Okay, that will be happening soon. So Ketu shows completing phases or ending of outer structure. Rahu is where the work and progress or development must happen. Okay. Ketu shows the overly utilized or exhausted nature of that house or grahas that it is conjunct or transiting. Now that is Libra. Okay. So we had reached a state where the major imbalance was created by extreme codependence on China for almost all products in every country in the world. So that's where, Ketu, when he moves into Libra, is going to highlight that weakness that we had of depending too much on China. Okay. So that structure has to collapse. Basically, that's what is going to come. So this extreme imbalance must be offset to bring balance back into the world. Hence, the world is shifting once again towards make in own country policy. Okay, many countries have resorted to this kind of structures where we have to make in our own country, become more self-sufficient, and so on. You can see big curbs and cutbacks of trade deals with China, as major economies like USA, Japan, India, and countries of Europe are pulling out of supplies and trade. All right, that does not mean that we are going to completely ignore China or you can't work with China and so on. It will still be there. A healthy balance is needed between diplomatic ties and how much we can depend on them. Okay. The other area where this transit will have its major impact is, of course, the Russia-Ukraine war. This is also the area of diplomacy between nations, seen through the sign of Libra. This will have impact on the global trade and economy as well. Okay, so you will be surprised as to how these two rashis, especially Aries and Libra, have become a key now to sustaining the economy. Okay, it's normally not the case. We think, right? It's usually Aries is a self-centered Rashi of personal development. It's the individual Rashi that we talk about here. Whereas Libra is the relationship Rashi in general. Okay, but it shows bazaars, trade, and such. The interesting bit is we have pushed the world into that phase where we have to rely on the balance of Aries and Libra now to bring the economy back to its shape. Okay, is that not interesting? Right? So next we can go into the generic understanding of which rashis or what will be impacted with Rahu Ketu, and again we will look into details of particularly for those rashis in the next video. Okay. So in general, in terms of Rahu and Ketu transits, natives with Aries and Libra Lagna will be impacted the most, no doubt about it. Whoever has Libra or Aries Lagna, they will have a very strong impact of this next 18 months. Okay. July 18th, 2023, Rahu will ingress Aries and Ketu will ingress Libra. Rahu Ketu transits in the Aries Libra axis will last until 12th of Jan 2025. Okay. So any eclipse dates starting from July 18th, 2023 to 12th of Jan 2025, a long stretch of eclipse dates will happen here, are going to significantly impact people who have any grahas in the rashis of Aries and Libra. Okay, first of course is your ascendant if you have Aries or Libra ascendant. Second is if you have any grahas in Aries or Libra. In this example chart, Jupiter is in Aries, so it will be impacting Jupiter in a strong manner. Okay, and the 7th house cusp will get impacted, the Lagna will get impacted. Okay. Also note that with the eclipses, not only are the day of the eclipse important, but the window of the eclipse, which is plus or minus 1 month of the eclipse, the world will also be in the shadow of the eclipse. That will also be important. So events can manifest 1 month before or 1 month after the eclipse dates. Natives who are running the nakshatra dasha or bhukti of Rahu and Ketu will be most impacted, needless to say. The discussion on what areas this transit will impact can be found in this article. That is the next video. Okay. So just like we saw in this example, it was Venus Dasha that was running. If you are in the Rahu Dasha or Ketu Dasha, Mahadasha, or Rahu Bhukti, Ketu Bhukti, it will be strongly impacting you. Next, I write here, natives who have any grahas in Aries and Libra, those Karakatvas, the natural and Chara of the graha, will be undergoing transformations. Okay, so in this example, Jupiter is in the seventh house, which shows relationships. Jupiter is also the Dhara Karaka. Okay, so definitely it will impact relationships in this example chart. Okay, whether it's a positive impact or negative impact, that is where you need the astrologer. Okay, natives who have Rahu Ketu transiting in the angular houses from the Lagna, that is for Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn ascendant, they will also undergo major life changing events for them. Okay, so I'm talking about the angular houses, all right, and here we saw Aries and Libra were definitely impacted because of having any grahas there, but also Cancer and Capricorn will be impacted. Natives who have Rahu and Ketu impacting their 1, 4, 7, and 10th house cusps will have major life changing events as well. Okay, that means in this example chart, Rahu will be transiting over the 7th cusp and Ketu will be transiting over the Lagna. So this is a very strong impact for them. Okay, but you might have your 4th cusp falling in Aries and let's say the 10th cusp is falling in Libra. Okay, if that is the case, you will be a Capricorn native and you will have a very strong impact on your life as well. Okay, but it might not be Capricorn ascendant, it could also be Aquarius ascendant with the cusps falling there. So you will still have a very strong impact. Okay, the main point is you want to see the nodes hitting your angular houses, the cardinal signs. If they're hitting them, normally that's the strongest you will feel. Okay, natives who have Rahu Ketu impacting their 2nd and 8th house cusp, that is Pisces and Virgo ascendant people, will also have major impact for them. Okay, with inclinations mostly towards negative for them. Okay, so for Virgo, Rahu will be transiting to the 8th, right? And for Pisces, Rahu will be in the 2nd. Likewise, for Virgo, Ketu will be in the 2nd. And for Pisces, Ketu will be in the 8th. Okay, so this is a very tough transit in general. Rahu Ketu on the 2nd and 8th house. Rahu and Ketu are Karakas for the Pitris, which means the ancestors, our past actions, and particularly the 12th house in astrology. So naturally, Rahu Ketu are responsible for the 12th house. Okay, and they show these people. Natives who have Rahu Ketu transiting their 12th house cusp, which means for Taurus and Scorpio Lagna natives, major impact will be in the area of your Pitris, grandparents, and lineage. These natives have scope to experience both good and bad results of their past actions as well. Okay, so definitely something to watch out for. Next, Rahu and Ketu indicate one set of grandparents in the chart. Okay, which they are, I will not go into the details here. Alright, along with that, Jupiter and Venus are Karakas for one set of grandparents as well. Okay, so if Rahu and Ketu are transiting over natal Jupiter and Venus, it will almost always bring events with respect to grandparents, lineage, and dynasty. Okay, that means in this example, Rahu will move into the sign of Aries, he will impact Jupiter. Okay, so that will impact their grandparents, their lineage, and ancestors. Alright, for sure you can expect some events around that. Further, both Jupiter and Venus are gurus in astrology. Jupiter is the guru who teaches judgment of the right from the wrong. Venus is the guru who teaches a native the values of life that lead to making healthy choices. Okay. The transits of Rahu and Ketu on Jupiter and Venus are always important as it will activate assessment or give results of past judgments and choices of the native. Okay, so normally what happens here is that I've seen when Rahu Ketu hit your natal Jupiter and Venus, re-evaluation of choices or some judgments that you might have made in the past about people, about things. If it was a good judgment, it will make you realize that it was worth doing that. Okay, if it was a bad judgment call, you will restructure around it. Okay, same way for Venus. If you made bad choices, especially relationship choices or investment choices and those kind of things, people will always get a re evaluation done at that stage. Okay, undoubtedly the area of relationships, spouse and children of the native will be impacted when Rahu Ketu will transit over Jupiter and Venus in your natal chart. Okay, it's extremely important, especially for both man and women. All right, women normally will be strongly impacted when it hits their Jupiter because both husband and children are shown by Jupiter. All right, for men at least it is Venus only that will show the spouse. Jupiter can show children. So for men, it will require two factors to activate it most often. But for women, just activation of Jupiter can show both husband and children. But it can also be such that Venus is the Putra Karaka in the chart for a man, and Venus can show children and the spouse. Okay, so such combinations are also possible. Next, in general, Rahu Ketu are malefic grahas in astrology. Okay, they are also separating planets and can separate the native from the Karakatvas over which they are transiting. Okay, just like Saturn, these are negative malefic grahas. So pay attention to Rahu and Ketu transits very close to the degree of the Karakas and house cusps. Okay, particularly we call this trigger transits when Rahu is exactly conjunct those grahas. For instance, you have Jupiter in the sign of Aries at 1 degrees here. Okay, Rahu will enter Aries, but he will enter in retrogression. So he will start from 29 degrees and so on. Okay, by the very end of Aries, he will hit Jupiter to the degree, which means approximately end of 2024, beginning of 2025, this transit will happen. Okay, that will be an exact trigger transit for Jupiter, and that will impact their Jupiter Karakatva in a very strong way. All right, and in a negative manner also is possible, is what I write here, because Rahu is a separating influence. All right, so of course, whether it is positive or negative will be to the assessment of your chart and to the assessment of the dashas and bhuktis and so on. Okay. In particular, 20th April 2023, there is a total solar eclipse. Okay, 5th, 6th May 2023, it's a lunar eclipse. 14th October, annular solar eclipse. 28 to 29 October, partial lunar eclipse. That is only for 2023 we're talking about. So if these eclipses occur very close to the Karakas or the house cusps, the stronger the impact. So for in this example, we have, let's say the 7th house is placed in 12 degrees or 15 degrees of Aries, okay, the midpoint of Aries. So if the eclipse that is coming up, these four eclipse dates for 2023, particularly like the total solar eclipse of 20th April 2023, I do not know the degree, but if it happens to be very close to that degree of 12 or 15 in this example, it will be impacting their 7th house in a strong manner. Okay, same way for the grahas. So if the total solar eclipse that is to come on 20th April 2023, if it hits Jupiter to 3 degrees of orb, to the exact 3 degrees of orb, that will impact Jupiter in a very strong way for this native. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. As a general rule of thumb, a 3-degree orb, which means 1 Navamsha impact of the eclipses or its closeness to the Karakas or house cusps, will be strongly experienced by the native. Okay. Next, Astronomically, Rahu and Ketu denote the points of intersection of the paths of the Sun and the Moon as they move on the celestial sphere. Okay, it's no new information. That's the fact of Rahu and Ketu. All right, Sun is the natural Karaka for the father, and Moon is the natural Karaka for the mother in the chart. So, transits of Rahu and Ketu on the Sun and the Moon of the natal chart will not only significantly impact the native, which is the person themselves. The reason is Sun and Moon can also show the natural self factors. Okay, but it will also significantly impact the life of the parents. Okay, so what this means is if Rahu and Ketu are transiting over the Sun and the Moon. Okay, in this example, let's say instead of Jupiter, there was the Moon here. Okay, that's an extremely important transit for the mother of this native as well. Or if this person has Sun in Libra, Ketu is transiting over the Sun. Okay, that's an extremely important transit for the Sun, which is the father of this native. Okay, always pay attention to grandparents and parents when Rahu Ketu hit those important grahas that we have discussed here. Okay. Next, point number 10, natives who have Rahu and Ketu in the 1 and 7 axis of the natal chart will also feel the strongest impact. That's always the case because Rahu Ketu can never become the Atma Karaka or the Lagna Lord for anyone. Okay, many astrologers use that. We don't in tropical system. All right. So what we have to understand here is that if you have Rahu in the ascendant or Ketu in the 7th and vice versa, basically they will have a very strong impact on their ascendant or the 7th house. So these natives will be subject to Rahu Ketu in a strong manner throughout their life. And such natives will always get the impact of Rahu Ketu changing signs as well in a very strong manner. Okay. Next, natives who have Rahu in the sign of Aries and Ketu in the sign of Libra in the natal chart. That is naturally, of course, right? If you have Rahu in Aries, Ketu in Libra, it will be your Rahu Ketu return now. Okay, once every 18 years, this will be a transit of Rahu Ketu coming back to their natal position. So, depending on whether it is your first, second, or third return, results will vary for Rahu Ketu. Okay. Next, natives who have Rahu in the sign of Libra and Ketu in the sign of Aries in the natal chart, which is the opposite, which means you have Rahu in Libra and Ketu in Aries. Okay, so that time Rahu will be moving into Aries in transit over your natal Ketu, and Ketu in transit will be moving over your natal Rahu. Okay, so these natives will be experiencing what we call as a nodal opposition in transit. Okay, so depending on whether it is your first, second, or third nodal opposition, the results will again vary. In general, as a rule of thumb, Rahu Ketu in opposition to the natal position is always good time periods to bring balance to your Rahu Ketu indications of the chart, whatever they might be. Okay, if you do not know what your indications are, either you must study by yourself or consult an astrologer at that step. Okay, so you can take advantage of this transit to benefit from your Rahu Ketu placements. In general, it's an extremely helpful time to bring balance to Rahu Ketu. Okay, then point number 13. So natives who have Rahu Ketu conjunct their Atma Karaka and Lagna Lord will always feel the significant shift in their behavior patterns and conscious patterns when Rahu and Ketu change Rashis. Okay, so what this means is, here in this chart, Moon is not the Lagna Lord, neither is he the Atma Karaka. Okay, but imagine in this chart Venus is the Lagna Lord, right? So if Venus was conjunct Ketu, that will be the Lagna Lord is conjunct one of the nodes. So this native will feel the strong impact of Rahu Ketu in transits as well. Okay. Then Venus is the Atmakaraka in this chart. Okay, but imagine we have Mars as the Atmakaraka, and in an example situation or a hypothetical situation here, Mars was conjunct Rahu. Okay. So the Atmakaraka being conjunct Rahu, this native has a very strong impact of the node on their life by default. Then if Rahu and Ketu change signs in transits, that will also strongly impact their personality and behavior patterns. Okay, more on the psychological realm, not necessarily on the material realm, okay, that we are talking here. All right, so that is the overview. That's like the general thing we saw in the past 3 videos or so. We touched base with Saturn, Jupiter, and Rahu Ketu in a general manner. Okay, so now you see there is a very strong impact of 4 grahas this year, and it's not easy to make any one set of predictions. You can't talk about Saturn alone, you can't talk about Jupiter alone, neither can you talk about Rahu Ketu alone. So there is a cumulative effect of this which we must consider. All right, and that's what we are going to do next. Okay, your life as an astrologer or a student of astrology would be very easy if it was only one graha changing signs, which normally is not. Okay, so we have to take the cumulative effect, and I normally recommend using a table for that, which will help you, okay, to understand the combined effect and such. So what I've done is I've listed Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, and Jupiter transits here, okay, for each and every lagna. So from Aries to Pisces, and I've written here the time period when Saturn is transiting in that house for that particular lagna. Rahu Ketu is transiting in that house for that particular lagna. Jupiter is transiting in that house for that particular lagna. Okay, so once again I have taken the equal house system here. All right, so for instance, let's take Aries. So for Aries, Saturn was transiting in the 11th Rashi, which was the sign of Aquarius, until March 6th, 2023. Okay, but then Saturn will move into the sign of Pisces, which is their 12th house, and this change will happen from March 7th, 2023. It will last until 14th of February 2026. So that is how you must read this table. So the change is from 11th house to the 12th house for Saturn. Okay. Next we have Rahu Ketu. So Rahu Ketu for Aries Lagna was transiting in the second house for Rahu and 8th house for Ketu. Okay. First number here is for Rahu. The second number which you see for the house is for Ketu. And this transit was in the sign of Taurus and Scorpio. It will last until 17th of July 2023. But after 17th of July 2023, Rahu Ketu will change signs and they will move into the 1-7 axis for Aries. Okay, and this will last from 18th of July 2023 to 12th of January 2025. Right. Same way for Jupiter. So for Aries, Jupiter was transiting in their first house until 16th of May 2023, and then Jupiter will move into the sign of Taurus, which is their second house, and this change is from 7th of May 2023 to 26th of May 2024. Okay, so you see there is 3 transits here but 4 grahas. All right, so on the left I have the Lagna Rashi. You can read that for all the other ascendants. We will go through this in the next video. We will go in detail about every ascendant, what is the impact, what kind of impact, which areas of life, and so on. But in this table is what is extremely important. Okay, so I have the last column here, which is the overall impact. All right, and I've color coded that. Okay, so first thing, the blue color here is the most impacted rashis among the 12. Okay, so the cumulative effect of these 3 transits, which lagna will be most impacted, means it will be Aries, Taurus, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and Pisces, the strongest of them. Okay, the impact will be there, whether it's a positive impact, negative impact, or mixed results. You will have to look at the overall impact column. Okay, so red, of course, is most challenging transit results. It will be negative mostly for them. Yellow or orange in this case is mostly mixed bag of results. Green is mostly positive transit results. Okay, So yes, Aries, Taurus, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Pisces were the Lagna Rashis that were strongly impacted. But Aries overall is a mixed results. Okay. Taurus will have mostly positive results from these three transits. Gemini will have mostly positive results as well. Okay. Cancer, Leo, and Virgo will have mostly negative or challenging results. Okay. Even though, yes, you can see I did not put Cancer and Leo as the mostly impacted, they will have negative results. And I will explain why when we go into the next video. Okay. Next, Libra will have mostly mixed results. Scorpio will have positive results. Sagittarius will have positive results. Capricorn mixed results. Aquarius will have positive results. Pisces will have mixed results. Okay. So that is the overall impact of these three cumulative transits. And next video, we will go into detail of what areas of life will be impacted for these Lagna Rashis. Okay. That is taking into account Saturn, Rahu, Ketu and Jupiter. Okay. I will explain both the positive and negative impact for every Lagna. Okay. So see you in the next one.